What happens when a former royal thinks she can waltz onto late-night television and lecture America about what we should think? It only took 37 seconds for Meghan Markle to completely destroy her own reputation on live television in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. Picture this scene. The studio lights are blazing hot. The audience is packed and buzzing with excitement. Greg Gutfeld sits behind his desk, that familiar smirk playing across his face. He knows exactly what kind of show this is going to be. Across from him, Meghan Markle adjusts in her chair, wearing what can only be described as the most expensive outfit money can buy. She has that look in her eyes. You know the one. That look that says she thinks she owns the room before she even opens her mouth. Greg leans back in his chair, completely relaxed. This is his house, his show, his rules. And he is about to remind everyone exactly why he is the king of late-night political comedy. So Meghan, Greg says with that trademark grin, you have been pretty vocal about American politics lately. Tell our audience, what exactly qualifies you to tell us how to vote? The question hangs in the air like a loaded weapon. The studio audience goes dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Meghan's face immediately hardens. Her jaw tightens. Her eyes narrow into slits. Well, Greg, she says, her voice dripping with condescension, I think being married into the British royal family gives me a unique perspective on leadership and governance that most Americans simply do not possess. The audience shifts uncomfortably. Did she really just say that? Did she really just suggest that Americans do not understand leadership? Greg raises an eyebrow. He cannot believe what he just heard, but he is not done yet, not even close. That is interesting, Greg says, leaning forward slightly. So you think being married to someone who was born into wealth and privilege automatically makes you smarter than the American people who actually live here and pay taxes here? Meghan's face flushes red. Her hands clench into fists on the armrests of her chair. She clearly did not expect to be challenged like this. She thought this would be another softball interview where she could spout her opinions without anyone pushing back. That is not what I said, she snaps. What I am saying is that I have seen real leadership up close. I have been in rooms with world leaders. I understand the complexities of governance in ways that ordinary people cannot comprehend. The audience gasps. Did she really just call them ordinary people? Greg shakes his head, a look of genuine disbelief spreading across his face. Ordinary people? He repeats slowly. You mean like the truck drivers who keep this country running? The nurses working double shifts? The teachers educating our children? The soldiers protecting our freedom? Those ordinary people? Meghan waves her hand dismissively, as if swatting away a fly. You are twisting my words, Greg. What I mean is that most Americans get their information from social media and cable news. They do not have access to the kind of insider knowledge that I possess. Greg pauses for a moment, letting her words sink in. The audience is getting restless now. You can feel the energy in the room shifting. They are starting to turn against her, and she does not even realize it. Insider knowledge? Greg repeats thoughtfully. You mean like the insider knowledge you had when you told Oprah that the royal family was racist? Or the insider knowledge you had when you claimed you were not allowed to leave the palace? The same insider knowledge that was later contradicted by your own security team? Meghan's composure is starting to crack. Her voice gets higher, more defensive. Those were my personal experiences, Greg. You were not there. You do not know what I went through. You are absolutely right, Greg says calmly. I was not there. But neither were the American voters you are trying to influence with your political endorsements. Yet you seem to think your personal experiences give you the authority to tell 300 million Americans how they should think about their own country. The tension in the studio is electric now. Meghan is visibly frustrated, shifting in her seat like a caged animal. She came on this show expecting to be treated like royalty, literally. Instead, she is getting the kind of tough questions she has been avoiding for years. I have every right to speak my mind about American politics, she says, her voice rising. This is supposed to be a free country, is it not? Greg nods slowly. It absolutely is a free country, which is exactly why I have the right to ask you these questions, and why our audience has the right to make up their own minds about whether your opinions matter to them. Meghan realizes she is losing control of the narrative. She tries a different approach, softening her voice and putting on what looks like a practiced, sympathetic expression. Greg, I think you are being deliberately confrontational here. I came on your show in good faith to have a meaningful conversation about the issues that matter to Americans. Instead, you are attacking me personally. Greg chuckles and shakes his head. I am not attacking you personally, Meghan. I am asking you substantive questions about your qualifications to lecture Americans about their own politics. If you find those questions uncomfortable, maybe that tells us something. The audience murmurs in agreement. Greg is winning this exchange decisively, and everyone in the studio knows it. But Meghan is not finished yet. She is about to make a move that will shock everyone watching and completely destroy whatever credibility she had left. She sits up straight in her chair and fixes Greg with an icy stare. When she speaks, her voice is cold as steel and filled with barely contained rage. "You know what your problem is, Greg?" Meghan says, her voice dripping with venom. "You represent everything that is wrong with American media. You sit here in your little bubble, pandering to people who are too ignorant to understand the real world. You make jokes about serious issues because you lack the intelligence to engage with them properly." The studio falls completely silent. Even the camera operators stop what they are doing. Nobody can believe what just came out of her mouth. She just called Greg Gutfeld, one of the most successful television hosts in America, stupid. She just called his entire audience ignorant. On his own show, Greg blinks slowly, processing what just happened. Then something changes in his expression. The playful smirk disappears. His eyes get serious. When he speaks, his voice is calm but deadly. "So let me make sure I understand this correctly," he says, measuring each word carefully. "You think I am stupid. You think my audience is ignorant. You think Americans in general are too dumb to make their own political decisions. And you think you, someone who married into wealth and privilege, are qualified to educate us all. Do I have that right?" Meghan realizes she has gone too far, but instead of backing down, she doubles down. This is the moment that will define her entire appearance on the show. "What I think," she says, jabbing her finger in Greg's direction, "is that you use comedy as a weapon to attack people who are trying to make positive change in the world. You mock everything you do not understand," which apparently is quite a lot. The audience is getting angry now. You can hear murmurs of disapproval rippling through the crowd. Greg holds up his hand to quiet them. He wants to handle this himself. "Meghan," he says slowly, "I've been doing this show for years. I've interviewed presidents, prime ministers, Nobel Prize winners, war heroes, and genuine changemakers, people who have actually accomplished something meaningful with their lives. And not one of them, not a single one, has ever felt the need to insult my intelligence or attack my audience just because I asked them tough questions." Meghan's face is now bright red. She is breathing heavily, clearly losing control of her emotions. "Those people probably told you what you wanted to hear, instead of challenging you to think differently." Greg laughs, but there is no humor in it. "You think you are challenging me to think differently? You think insulting me and my audience is some kind of intellectual challenge? Meghan, you have not presented a single original idea or substantive argument this entire interview. All you have done is tell us how much smarter and better you are than everyone else." "That is not true," she protests, but her voice is getting shaky now. She knows she is losing this battle badly. "Really?" Greg says, leaning back in his chair. "Then please, enlighten us. What specific policy proposals do you have for America? What solutions are you offering for the problems you claim we are too stupid to understand?" Meghan opens her mouth to respond, then closes it again. She realizes she has nothing. No policies, no solutions, no substance whatsoever. She came on this show with nothing but attitude and condescension. And now she is being exposed on live television. "I do not have to justify my opinions to you," she finally says, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, you do not," Greg agrees, "but you do have to justify them to the American people if you want them to take you seriously, and so far all you have done is insult them." The audience starts to applaud, not loudly, but steadily. They appreciate seeing someone stand up for them against this entitled celebrity who thinks she is better than everyone else. Meghan hears the applause, and something snaps inside her. Her carefully constructed public persona completely crumbles. What comes next will shock everyone watching and become the most talked about television moment of the year. She stands up from her chair, towering over the desk where Greg is sitting. Her voice rises to a near shout. "You want to know what I really think about America?" she yells, pointing accusingly at the audience. "I think this country is full of small-minded, backwards-thinking people who are afraid of change. You elected Donald Trump. You still argue about basic human rights. You worship guns and money while ignoring poverty and inequality. Maybe you do need someone like me to show you a better way." The audience erupts. People are booing, shouting, standing up from their seats. Security guards start moving toward the stage. Greg sits perfectly still, letting the chaos unfold around him. He knows this moment will define not just this interview, but Meghan's entire public image going forward. "And there it is," he says quietly into his microphone, his voice somehow cutting through all the noise. "The real Meghan Markle. Not the polished, media-trained version. The one who thinks Americans are small-minded and backwards. The one who thinks we need her to save us from ourselves. Meghan realizes what she has done. She looks around at the angry faces in the audience, at the security guards approaching, at Greg sitting calmly behind his desk with that knowing look on his face. She has just committed career suicide on live television. "I did not mean it like that," she says desperately, trying to backtrack. "But it is too late. The words are out there. The damage is done." "Oh, I think you meant it exactly like that," Greg says. "I think that is what you have always thought about Americans. You just finally said it out loud." Meghan looks around frantically, as if searching for an escape route. The audience is still angry. The security guards are getting closer. Even the production crew looks shocked by what just happened. "This interview is over," she declares, trying to regain some dignity. "I will not sit here and be ambushed like this." Greg nods calmly. "You are absolutely right. This interview is over, but not because you are ending it. Because you just showed America exactly who you really are." Meghan starts to storm off the set, but she is not done making mistakes yet. She turns back to face Greg one more time, and what she says next will become the most infamous moment in talk show history. She spins around on her expensive heels, her face twisted with rage, and points directly at Greg with a shaking finger. What comes out of her mouth next will be replayed on every news channel for weeks. "You know what, Greg? You and everyone in this pathetic audience can go straight to hell. I am royalty. I do not have to sit here and take this abuse from some second-rate comedian and his audience full of trailer park trash." The words hit the studio like a bomb going off. Complete silence, then chaos. The audience explodes in outrage. People are shouting. Some are trying to rush the stage before security stops them. Camera operators are scrambling to capture every angle of this historic meltdown. Greg sits perfectly still for a moment, letting the magnitude of what just happened sink in. Then he slowly stands up from behind his desk. His voice cuts through the noise like a knife. "Ladies and gentlemen," he says calmly, "you just witnessed something extraordinary. You just saw someone reveal their true character on live television. Meghan Markle just called you trailer park trash. She just told an entire studio audience and millions of viewers at home to go to hell because you had the audacity to not worship her." Meghan realizes the enormity of her mistake. Her face goes white. She tries to speak, but no words come out. She looks like someone who just watched their entire life crumble in front of them. I was angry. I did not mean," she stammers. But Greg cuts her off. "Oh, you meant every word of it," he says, his voice steady and authoritative. "You meant it when you called Americans ignorant. You meant it when you said we are small-minded and backwards. And you definitely meant it when you called my audience trailer park trash. The only thing you regret is that you said it out loud." Security guards are now flanking Meghan, waiting for instructions. The audience is still angry, but they quiet down to hear what Greg says next. Everyone knows they are witnessing television history. "You know what the really sad part is?" Greg continues, looking directly at Meghan. "You had everything. You married into the most famous family in the world. You had a platform that billions of people would kill for. You could have used that influence to actually help people, to make a real difference. Instead, you chose to use it to lecture and insult the very people who made you famous." Meghan tries one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "Greg, please, I was upset. I said things I should not have said. Can we just forget this happened?" The audience laughs bitterly. Even some of the crew members are shaking their heads. Greg looks at her with what can only be described as pity. "Forget it happened?" he says incredulously. "Meghan, this is live television. Millions of people just watched you have a complete meltdown and insult an entire nation. You cannot take those words back. You cannot pretend they never happened. They are out there forever." Meghan looks around desperately, as if hoping someone will rescue her from this nightmare. But there is no rescue coming. She made this mess herself, word by word, insult by insult. "This is not fair," she whispers, and for a moment she sounds like a child who just got caught lying. "Fair?" Greg repeats, his voice rising slightly for the first time all night. "You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you went on national television and accused the royal family of racism without providing any evidence? Was it fair when you and Harry trashed the institution that gave you your fame while they could not respond? Was it fair when you came on my show tonight and immediately started insulting my intelligence and my audience? Where exactly was fairness in your playbook, Meghan?" She has no answer. She stands there in her expensive dress, surrounded by security guards, looking smaller and more pathetic with each passing second. The woman who walked onto this stage thinking she was untouchable has been completely exposed. Greg walks around his desk and stands directly in front of her. When he speaks, his voice is quiet, but every word carries the weight of absolute finality. You came here tonight thinking you could lecture Americans about how they should think and vote. You thought you could insult us, and we would just take it because of who you married. You thought your title made you better than everyone else in this room. Well, congratulations, Meghan. You just learned the most American lesson of all. Nobody is above being held accountable for their words and actions, not even royalty. The audience erupts in applause. Not the polite golf claps you usually hear on talk shows, but genuine, thunderous applause. They are applauding Greg for standing up to someone who tried to talk down to them. They are applauding the idea that in America, nobody gets a free pass just because of their status. Meghan looks around at the applauding crowd with tears starting to form in her eyes. She knows her career in American media is over. She knows that every word she said tonight will follow her forever. She knows she just became the most hated celebrity in America. "Get me out of here," she whispers to the security guards, and they start escorting her toward the exit. But Greg is not done yet. "Meghan," he calls after her. She stops and turns around one last time. "Next time you want to lecture Americans about their politics, maybe try living here first. Maybe try understanding the people you are talking to instead of insulting them. Maybe try earning respect instead of demanding it." She does not respond. She cannot respond. She just turns and walks off the stage, her head down, her expensive heels clicking on the floor like a countdown to the end of her relevance. Greg turns back to face the camera as the audience continues to cheer. His expression is serious but satisfied, like someone who just did something difficult but necessary. "Well, folks," he says with a slight smile returning to his face, "that was something we will probably never see again on television. A complete meltdown, caught on live TV, by someone who thought they were too important to be challenged. I guess we all learned something tonight about the difference between earned respect and entitled arrogance." The credits start to roll as the audience gives Greg a standing ovation. In the span of one interview, he has managed to expose everything wrong with celebrity political activism while defending the dignity of ordinary Americans. And Meghan Markle, the woman who thought she could lecture an entire nation, has just learned that in America, respect has to be earned, not inherited.